Hi everybody, this is a bit of a follow-up to my video The Amazing MR Atheist, where of course I picked apart the interview A Voice for Men did with The Amazing Atheist. Now there was something that was mentioned there that I was going to mention in the video, but the video was already getting a bit long and I thought this particular point deserved a video in its own right. And that was the assertion that was made that a group like Atheism Plus is hijacking someone else's movement, is basically feminists hijacking someone else's movement in order to push their own agenda. Now, I mean, for a start, atheism should get out of the way, as I mentioned in the last video. Atheism isn't a movement, and even if it were, it wouldn't belong to anyone in particular. You know, it would be a movement for anyone that didn't believe in God. Surely, if there is any kind of atheist movement, it's not something you can accuse one set of atheists of hijacking. They've as much right to push their own agenda within it as anyone else. That's why atheism isn't a movement, really, because it's got too great a diversity of people under its umbrella to be to have a common goal, should we say. That's something I've mentioned in a couple of other videos before. Humanism, however, that's a movement that has a set of common goals. It has a minimum statement, which I shall read in a moment. Now I'm bringing that up because A Voice for Men are currently describing, they have a tagline on their website, Humanist counter theory. Now, I find this highly hypocritical of them, because here they are making this accusation that feminists are hijacking someone else's movement. Well, I can tell you right now, A Voice for Men are not part of the humanist movement. They are not members of the International Humanist and Ethical Union. Their philosophies and their behaviour are not compatible with humanism. And I've mentioned this before in earlier videos as well, but I might as well repeat it. I'm just going to read, and I've read this before, but I'm hoping it will sink in, because one thing YouTube atheists really need to do before they start calling themselves humanists is learn what humanism is. The minimum statement for the International Humanist and Ethical Union is this: humanism is a democratic and ethical life stance that affirms that human beings have the right and responsibility to give meaning and shape to their own lives. Humanism stands for the building of a more humane society through an ethics based on human and other natural values in a spirit of reason and free inquiry through human capabilities. Humanism is not theistic, and it does not accept supernatural views of reality. Okay, so that's basically the minimum statement for humanism. That's what you have to at least agree with, that to be considered a member of the International Humanist and Ethical Union, which is the largest umbrella organisation for humanist groups everywhere. So if you like, all the humanist groups in the world, or the vast majority of them, all come together under this group. They're all members of this group. Yeah, so the MRA, certainly the MRA group, certainly like A Voice for Men, which is what I'm talking about here, that's what I'm going to stick with. They are notably not a member. I've had a look at the membership list of the IHEU. They are not a member of this organisation, which is no surprise, given as the current president-elect of the IHEU is, for one thing, a woman, for another thing, she's a feminist, and as such is going to be perfectly aware of the kind of bullshit groups like A Voice for Men spew out, even if she doesn't know who they are. With one cursory glance at their behaviour, their website is sure to ring alarm bells, I'm sure. So I just wanted to point out that glaring hypocrisy there of a group that's accusing feminists of hijacking a movement which isn't a movement, while they are trying to hijack a movement which is an actual movement. This is an actual movement. Now, I shouldn't really have to go into details of why A Voice for Men are not humanists. But in short, they aren't trying to build a more humane society and a more ethical society. Nor do they have values that are in the spirit of reason. Their website, from what I've seen of it, includes a number of views which are in direct conflict with history. They rewrite history. They have their own timeline. I read it out in The first ever video I did on the first time I visited the A Voice for Men website, I did a sort of pick apart of their timeline, and I did a video on it. They have a timeline of history on their website which is not accurate. It does not tessellate with actual history, with actual peer-reviewed historical documents. A lot of these men's rights activists, people involved with A Voice for Men, are biological determinists. They seem to think that male behaviour and female behaviour are determined by our biology. They seem to think that... I've watched a couple of videos on Paul Elam's YouTube channel, and good grief, was that painful. They seem to think women are incapable of being in the military. They still of course complain about the draft, because, you know, if they didn't, that would be logically consistent, and we can't have that. So these people do not embrace reason. They've got the atheism thing down, certainly. Humanism is not theistic, they aren't theistic either. That's about it. That's the only thing A Voice for Men have in common with the International Humanist and Ethical Union. That's the only thing men's rights activism seems to have in common with secular humanism, as far as I can gather. So, really, I fully encourage YouTube atheists to learn about humanism, I really do, but I would say please don't call yourself a humanist if you don't know what humanism is. Humanism is not non-feminism. It's not an alternative to being a feminist. I've heard a few people say, I'm not a feminist, I'm a humanist, usually with some smug follow-up saying, I care about everybody. Unlike you only care about half of everybody. I care about everybody. That's not really what humanism is. Humanism is not a word to describe that. Humanism is a non-religious form of worldview, if you like, a non-religious moral philosophy. That's what it distinguishes itself from. It distinguishes itself from religious approaches to morality, or religious approaches to worldview. That's what it is. It's an alternative to religion, not an alternative to feminism or anything like that. So humanism doesn't just mean someone who cares about humanity, although that is a core value of humanism. It means slightly more than that. Yes, but A Voice for Men certainly don't think that. They certainly aren't campaigning for a more ethical and humane society. They're crassly misogynistic. They also don't embrace science, which is an important, or reason, which is an important part of secular humanism. So I really wanted to get that off my chest. I think that was not something I wanted to include in the original video, because that was already getting very long, but it's something I wanted to mention. So no, the term humanist counter theory, no. I think all they're really doing is trying to embrace this misunderstanding of humanism to their own ideals. They're trying to embrace it, but really, no. A Voice for Men, not humanists.